Well, last week we were continuing a series which we've started this month, a series called Your Kingdom Come, Getting a Piece of the Action. And the idea of this is that we are seeing in Luke's Gospel what Jesus is doing and what's going on might inspire us and encourage us and guide us in our church action plan, which we adopted back in December. And last week we were in chapter 4, and Jesus was reading from a scroll, and Narek's going to come and show us what they did in junior church. You're going to run down, Narek? Don't fall over. So in junior church, they were also looking at the same passage that we were looking at, where Jesus went into the synagogue, and he was on the reading rota. Do you remember that last week? Yeah, and he had to read from the prophet of Isaiah. So should we go up here so people can see us? Let's come this side. So what have you got?
Last time at junior church, we made a scroll, and we also made this, which is what they'd use to point out the words when somebody's reading it, because they didn't want to get the scroll all dirty with their fingers. But we didn't have enough time to make all of this brown to make it look like a stick sort of thing.
Okay. So should we open up the scroll?
Yeah.
Okay. So you've got some words on there. You're going to read those words for us. Shall I point the yad at the words?
Yeah.
Okay.
God's Spirit is on me. He's chosen me to preach the message of good news to the poor, sent me to announce pardon to prisoners and recovery of sight to the blind, to set the burdened and battered free, to announce this is God's time to shine.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Narek, for showing us that. And I think on the screen you can see a real scroll and real yad there as they're reading the Hebrew scriptures. Those words we heard, we were saying last week, how in the Gospels it shows us how Jesus went on to actually do those things, to be good news to those in need. And today our readings again show us how Jesus is putting those values and that vision of the kingdom into practice, how much Jesus cares for the people around him. So today we're thinking about care in the kingdom, and we're thinking about how that is connected with goal 3 of our action plan. Well, caring involves lots of feelings, doesn't it? The people who we're caring for have lots of feelings, and as we care, we have feelings too, lots of emotions. So I wonder, as these different faces come up on the screen, you don't need to shout them out, but just have a think, maybe speak to the person next to you. What sort of emotions do these faces show us? There we go. I wonder if any of our younger ones want to tell us anything they see on the screen here. Any feelings? Narek? The green one's feeling a bit sick. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Anyone else? Ella, are there any faces there that you want to tell us about? No? A happy one. Excellent. And a party one. Yeah. They're really happy. They're celebrating, aren't they? They're having a party. Yeah. Robert? Top middle, bit shocked or angry, yeah? Yeah? Any other emotions that we see here? Yeah, so there's some love going on there, yeah? Narek? You were going to say that one, yeah? Anything else? I mean, some of them are a bit similar. Is there any sort of difference between them? Barbara? Surprise, yeah? Good. Hot and sweaty. That's not really an emotion, is it, George? But maybe it is. Yeah. What do you think they're feeling? They got sort of this face, sort of blue at the top, and a tear rolling down. And how do they feel? Miserable. Yeah. Anxious, maybe. Anxious about something. Yeah. Okay, Robert. Fuming? I think they're really upset, aren't they? I think they're just crying. Yeah, okay. So here we see all sorts of different emotions. I don't know if you use, your emojis when you're doing anything like that, but they do it in a simple way. They express all kinds of things that we feel. And in today's readings, we're going to meet all of these different emotions. So as we hear the readings, I want you to listen carefully. Linda's going to come and read a couple of little stories in Luke's Gospel for us, and I want you to listen carefully. When do these feelings come, and who is feeling them, and why do they feel like this?
When Jesus had finished saying all these things to the people, he went to Capernaum. A Roman officer there had a servant who was very dear to him. The man was sick and about to die. When the officer heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders to ask him to come and heal his servant. They came to Jesus and begged him earnestly, "This man really deserves your help. He loves our people, and he himself has built a synagogue for us." So Jesus went with them. He was not far from the house when the officer sent friends to tell him, "Sir, don't trouble yourself. I do not deserve to have you come to my house. Neither do I consider myself worthy to come to you in person. Just give the order, and my servant will get well. I too am a man placed under the authority of superior officers, and I have soldiers under me. I order this one, go, and he goes. I order that one, come, and he comes. And I order my slave, do this, and he does it." Jesus was surprised when he heard this. He turned round and said to the crowd following him, "I tell you, I have never found faith like this, not even in Israel." The messengers went back to the officer's house and found his servant well. Jesus raises a widow's son. Soon afterwards, Jesus went to a town called Nain, accompanied by his disciples and a large crowd. Just as he arrived at the gate of the town, a funeral procession was coming out. The dead man was the only son of a woman who was a widow, and a large crowd from the town were with her. When the Lord saw her, his heart was filled with pity for her, and he said to her, "Don't cry." Then he walked over and touched the coffin, and the men carrying it stopped. Jesus said, "Young man, get up, I tell you." The dead man sat up and began to talk, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. They were all filled with fear and praised God. "A great prophet has appeared among us," they said. "God has come to save his people." This news about Jesus went out through all the country and the surrounding territory.
Thank you, Linda. So, did we see what was happening there? Who was feeling in these kinds of ways? Well, I think if we follow around from the sick person, we know who was sick, don't we? Who was sick? The servant, the Roman officer's servant was very sick, yeah? Feeling pretty bad. In fact, so bad that he was almost going to die. And then we've got some other feelings coming around there. Who was feeling like that? He was, the Roman officer. I mean, it tells us that he dearly loved his servant, and he was really worried and anxious about him. And they came to Jesus, and what did they do? They begged him. Very good. You remember what you read, didn't you, Linda? Well done. It tells us that they begged him. That's what that emoji there is with the sort of, the eyes that look a bit puppyish. They were begging him, "Jesus, please do something," because the Roman officer had sent these people to go and ask him, the elders of the synagogue, and they were worried. And then what happens next? What's that sort of face with the sort of like, feeling a bit surprised? The one before surprised, how is this person feeling? They're feeling a bit like, they're kind of like, they're a bit ashamed, or, they're not able to look up. And what did the Roman officer say? He said, I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy to come to you, and you're not worthy to come into my house. In fact, because it was a Roman house, or a Roman officer, he wasn't a Jew. If Jesus had gone in, it wouldn't have been good for him in terms of the religion of the day. And so he's saying, look, don't come to my house. I'm not worthy. Just say the word. I'm a guy in charge. I know how it is. You say something and it happens. And he thinks Jesus can do the same. And so, who's surprised? Jesus. Isn't that lovely? Jesus is surprised by what? What is Jesus surprised by? By his faith. Yeah, wow, even in Israel, even amongst the Jewish people, I've not found faith like this. It's almost like he's happy and proud that this Roman officer has this kind of faith that says he doesn't even need to come into my house, just say the word and it will happen. And of course, what's interesting in the story is that Jesus doesn't even say anything. He just goes back and that servant is healed. And then we get the next story following round the left from the bottom. Who are these people? What are they feeling? What's going on? They're very sad. We're told it's a funeral procession. And we've got the real emotion here, the woman. Who was the woman in the story? A widow. So she's lost her husband, and now we're told that she's lost her her only son. And of course, in those days, in that culture, the woman was dependent on the husband or the son for having what they needed. So here we see that she is not just devastated by the loss, but she's in an awful situation as well, where she's going to be destitute. She's not going to have anything that she needs. And we've got the face in the middle, feeling what? Feeling, what did it tell us about Jesus here? What did he feel?
Pity.
Yeah, it said pity. It said he felt great pity. Some translations say compassion. And the word in Greek is, it kind of means a moving in your gut. You know, Jesus sees this situation. He sees the funeral. He sees the woman. He sees that all of this going on, and he is moved in deep inside. So, what does he do? Goes over and touches the coffin. Again, you know, he shouldn't be doing that. By Jewish law, if he touches the coffin, it makes him unclean. It makes him, you know, puts him in a bad relationship with God. But no, Jesus is the one the Spirit is on, remember? And he comes to bring good news to the poor. And he goes and he touches that coffin. He heals that young man. And so there is both this, I guess the word compassion, it has that sense of pity, but also that sense of love. And then they all celebrate, don't they, at the end? Wow, you know, God has come amongst us. So much emotion going on in these two stories, isn't there? People in quite different situations, but they are concerned, they are sad, they have their problems. Isn't that very much like life? And here we see Jesus responding to their needs. God cares. God cares for our situations. And in Jesus, we see even God's emotions. You know, Jesus being surprised and kind of proud and happy of this Roman officer, and then feeling this pity and compassion with the Jewish widow. So, although they're a little bit different, there's things there that are very much the same, aren't they? That Jesus is caring for these people in their situations. But there are also some interesting differences. I wonder if we can spot the difference between, you know, you get spot the difference, don't you? I think I've got a picture here. In an activity book, sometimes you get spot the difference. This isn't really the spot the difference I'm thinking about, okay? But just, can anyone see the three differences between these two pictures? Oh, no, you've got your hand up. Go on. Give us one.
On that side,
Yeah, on the right-hand side.
Jesus hasn't got one of his eyebrows.
You're right. Jesus has lost an eyebrow on the right-hand side, yeah? Anything else that's different? Elizabeth? Yeah, on the right-hand side, the man's got his, you can see the black mouth, he's got a big mouth open, yeah? And anything else there? Oh, no, Alex got his hand up again. Go on. That's right, a pebble or a coin, there's something on the floor, isn't there? So we know the idea of spot the difference, right? It helps us see, it helps us analyse what's going on. And actually, the kind of spot the difference that I want us to think about is not like this, but if we go to the next slide, we're thinking about the differences between these two stories, because there are some things that are the same. We talked about those, how Jesus cares for people in very difficult situations, how he brings healing in both cases. But they're quite different, aren't they? I mean, think about the people. How are the people different in the two stories? Sorry? Romans and Jews, yeah. So one's a Roman officer. And what would that have meant if he was a Roman officer? Sorry? He could have been hated by the Jews, that's true. Although in this case he wasn't. Why wasn't he? He did have authority. But what did he do? Do you remember in the story? What had he done for the Jews? That's right. He'd helped them with their synagogue, hadn't he? So he'd been perhaps helping them with some funds for building their synagogue, or perhaps You know, he was able to twist an arm to get some planning permission for an extra bit of the synagogue. We don't know how, but he helped them build their synagogue. So the elders in their town where this Roman officer was were very happy, and they saw that he was someone of influence. So he probably, if he was able to help them, he was probably wealthy, he was influential. But yeah, he was a Roman, he wasn't Jewish. An important, wealthy Roman. And the Jewish lady, who was she? We mentioned already. She was a widow. So in a way, she was a nobody in that society. She was somebody without any influence. She was somebody who needed help, who needed to be provided for. And then what about the way that Jesus helps? How is that different? In the two stories, the way that Jesus helps them, how is that different? Yeah, so with the centurion system, it's remote control. Yeah, so he's far away. He heals the servants, the Roman officer's servant. Yeah, and with the widow, he actually touches. Yeah, so quite different, isn't it? You know, it's not just one way that Jesus heals, but yeah, he doesn't. In the first instance, of course, because the Roman officer believed that Jesus didn't even need to touch, Jesus wants to honour that faith, and the person is healed. But in the other case, in the confusion of that crowd, and amongst all that wailing and crying, Jesus comes and he's present. He touches that young man. And then why do these things happen? Why does Jesus actually heal the Roman officer's servant, and why does he heal the widow's son? That's also different, isn't it? You know, what's the difference? Faith was involved. Interesting, isn't it? It was in the first one. Was faith involved in the second one? Not from the people. I mean, from Jesus, yes. But isn't it interesting that in the first case, there was this strong faith. The Roman officer said, you know, Jesus, you can do this. In the second case, there is no faith as such. It's a hopeless situation. Everyone is crying. Everyone is going with this procession, leading out this young man as a dead person. There's no sense of faith or hope, and yet Jesus sees it, and he responds. So that's quite a difference, isn't it? In the first one, someone has come to Jesus and is asking for help. In the second case, no one's asking for help. Jesus just simply sees the situation, feels that pity, that compassion. He's moved, and he responds. He initiates that healing. So in these similar but very different stories, we see God's care in the kingdom. Jesus is God's Spirit-filled King, the one bringing good news, setting people free. And here we see him caring for the rich and the wealthy, but also caring for a poor, unknown widow. He cares for the big and the little. He listens and responds, surprised by faith. And he also sees and initiates, moved by compassion. He orders healing where there is hope, and he brings healing where there is hopelessness. This is our God. And this is the care of the kingdom that we are called to get a piece of the action of. In our action plan, the third goal is to develop a stronger network of support and pastoral care for all our user groups on the premises, calling it a kind of chaplaincy. And that means it's not about getting to know them so that we can convert them or bring them into church on a Sunday morning. It's about getting to know them so that we can understand their situation, understand their needs. And like with Jesus, sometimes that will be about responding to a request. Sometimes it will be being moved, having that feeling in our gut, moved by what we see. Sometimes it might be with the wealthy and influential. Sometimes it might be with the poor and the voiceless. Perhaps sometimes we'll be surprised by people's faith. And other times we will be filled with compassion. Goal 3 is about finding ways to build bridges and deepen relationships with those who are physically present in this space. And then as the Spirit leads us, we can offer help and healing amidst all the emotions of life. You know, that help might be a listening ear, a word of comfort, might be practical support. It might be praying for a miracle. However the Spirit leads us, we can offer help and healing. Your kingdom come.